She didn't just leave you, she dismantled you. Piece by agonizing piece, she deconstructed the man you thought you were, leaving nothing but a ghost haunting the ruins of his own life. You tell yourself it was a breakup, a mutual parting, a simple rejection. That is a lie you whisper to yourself in the dark, a comforting fantasy to mask the brutal truth of your execution. This wasn't a breakup. It was a psychological demolition. She wasn't your partner. She was your center of gravity. And when she walked away, your entire universe collapsed into a black hole of neediness and obsession. Look at you now. Your phone is a cruel master, a tiny glowing tyrant you serve with pathetic devotion. Every notification, every vibration sends a jolt of desperate hope through your system. A pathetic gambler's prayer that this time, it will be her. It never is. You scroll through her life, a digital peeping Tom watching her move on, watching her smile, watching her exist in a world that no longer requires you. Each picture is another twist of the knife. Each post is a fresh layer of salt in the wound. You have become a spectator to the life you were supposed to be living. You replay the final conversation, the final moments, with the obsessive precision of a forensic analyst examining a crime scene. You dissect her words, her tone, her silences, searching for a clue, a loophole, a hidden meaning that might reverse the verdict. But there is no hidden meaning. The meaning was clear, cold, and absolute. Her indifference was the weapon, and your desperate attachment was the vulnerability she exploited, consciously or not. You handed her the blueprint to your own emotional architecture, and she simply decided to condemn the building. The philosopher Erich Fromm would not have called your condition love. He would have given it a much colder, more clinical diagnosis. He would have called it a symptom of a sick culture, a marketing orientation applied to human connection. You weren't a lover. You were a product on a shelf, desperately trying to sell yourself to a consumer who was no longer interested. You adjusted your packaging, offered discounts on your dignity, and begged her to see your value. But the market decided you were worthless, and you accepted its valuation without question. This frantic, obsessive chase you call love? Fromm would call it a pathology, a symbiotic attachment, where you sacrificed your own identity to merge with another. Not out of strength, but out of a desperate fear of standing alone. You didn't love her. You needed her to fill the terrifying emptiness inside yourself. This is the anatomy of your powerlessness. It began the moment you made her validation the source of your own. Your confidence, your happiness, your very sense of self-worth became a currency only she could mint, and she just declared you bankrupt. Now, you wander through your days in a fog of anxiety, a low-grade hum of dread that never ceases. Your work suffers. Your health deteriorates. Your friends offer useless platitudes that feel like insults. They tell you to move on, as if you could simply will yourself out of the prison you built with your own hands. They don't understand the psychological cage you're in because you were the one who handed her the key. The question that burns in your mind, the one that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., is, how do I get her back? But that is the wrong question. It is the question of a slave asking how to please his master. It is the question of the addict wondering where his next fix will come from. It is a question that perpetuates your weakness and solidifies your position as the effect, not the cause, in your own life. The real question, the one that holds the key to your liberation, is far more brutal and far more powerful. The question is not how you get her back. The question is, how do you rebuild your internal empire on the ashes of your subjugation, engineering a reality so powerful and self-contained that her return would be nothing more than a trivial footnote in the epic of your own life? How do you become the man she was never qualified to have in the first place? Before we dissect the anatomy of your collapse and begin the strategic reconstruction of your power, I command you to act. This is not a request. It is your first step in reclaiming agency. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and fortify this arsenal. Like this video to signal your commitment to this war against your own weakness. And in the comments below, I want to know the battlefield you're fighting on. Tell me where in the world you are watching from, and what specific power trauma brought you here today. Share the moment you finally understood that the game was rigged, and that you were the one who had been played. Your war stories are the foundation of our new empire. Now, let us begin the autopsy of your defeat. The first truth you must swallow is that your idealized image of her, and of the relationship, was a complete fabrication. You were not in love with a person. You were in love with a fantasy you projected onto her. She was a blank screen, and you filled it with all your hopes, your dreams, and your unmet needs. You crowned her the queen of an imaginary kingdom, and then were shocked when she refused to play the part. This idealization is a classic symptom of what Fromm called immature love. It is the love of a child, which says, "I love you because I need you." It is a fundamentally selfish, transactional arrangement masquerading as romance. Mature love, the love of a sovereign man, says, "I need you because I love you." The difference is not semantic. It is the chasm between power and powerlessness. You were operating from a position of deficit, trying to extract value, validation, happiness, purpose, from an external source. A man of power operates from a position of surplus. His love is not a plea but a gift, offered from a place of abundance, and he is indifferent as to whether it is accepted or rejected because his own supply is infinite. Your pain is not the noble suffering of a tragic hero. It is the withdrawal symptom of an addict. Her attention was your drug, and now that your supply has been cut off, your system is in revolt. This is why you feel the compulsive need to check her social media, to talk about her, to keep her alive in your mind. It's a desperate attempt to get a small hit of the substance you crave. You are not missing her. You are missing the feeling she gave you. You are missing the validation, the escape from your own emptiness. Recognizing this is the first, most painful step toward freedom. You must see your love for what it was, an addiction. And like any addict, your first move must be to detox. This means severing the connection completely, not as a tactic to make her miss you, but as a strategy for your own survival. This is the principle of no contact, and it is non-negotiable. It is the surgical removal of the emotional cancer that is killing you. Every time you look at her picture, every time you ask a mutual friend about her, every time you allow yourself to daydream about a reconciliation, you are sticking the needle back in your own arm. You are resetting the clock on your recovery and volunteering for another round of psychological torture. The memories will come. They will ambush you when you are driving, when you are trying to work, when you are lying in bed. They will feel warm and seductive, whispering lies about the good times. You must treat these memories as enemy propaganda. They are distorted, romanticized highlight reels created by your addiction to lure you back into servitude. Your mind is a compromised territory, and you must treat it as such. Challenge every nostalgic thought. For every good memory your mind offers, you must counter it with the cold, hard reality of your present pain. Remember the anxiety. Remember the feeling of walking on eggshells. Remember the subtle condescension in her voice. Remember the gut-wrenching moment she looked at you with indifference. You must anchor yourself to the pain of the truth, not the comfort of the lie. This is not about demonizing her. It is about demythologizing her. It is about seeing the situation with the cold, rational clarity of a military strategist, not the tear-filled eyes of a jilted lover. She is not a goddess. She is a person who held power over you because you willingly gave it to her. The process of taking it back will be the hardest thing you have ever done. But on the other side of this fire is not just recovery. On the other side is rebirth. Your defeat was not an event. It was a process. A slow, silent erosion of your sovereignty that you actively participated in, mistake by agonizing mistake. You think her departure was the moment you lost. You are wrong. The war was lost long before the final battle. It was lost in a series of small, seemingly insignificant surrenders, each one a nail in the coffin of your authority. Let's perform the strategic analysis of your downfall. This is the cold, forensic deconstruction of your failure. It began with emotional concession. This is the first breach in the wall. It happened the first time she expressed displeasure. A sigh, a cold shoulder, a critical tone. And your immediate, reflexive response was not to stand your ground, but to placate. She was in a bad mood after work. Instead of allowing her to own her emotions, you made them your problem to solve. You became a court jester, a therapist, a servant, scrambling to restore her emotional equilibrium because her discomfort made you uncomfortable. You saw this as kindness, as being a good partner. It was not. It was the first sign of your dependency. You were signaling to her that your inner state was contingent upon hers. She tested. You yielded. She won. This pattern repeated itself. She didn't like your friends, so you saw them less. She made a subtle jab at your ambitions, so you spoke of them with less passion. Each concession was a transfer of power. You gave her a vote, then a veto, over your own life, and you did it willingly, believing it was the price of peace. It was the price of servitude. From concession, you descended into the second phase, the loss of emotional control. Because your well-being was now outsourced to her, her moods became your master. When she was happy, you were granted a temporary reprieve. When she was distant or upset, your entire world tilted into chaos. Her silence was a psychological weapon you were defenseless against. You couldn't bear the tension. You would probe. You would ask, "What's wrong?" a dozen times. You would beg for an explanation. You broke the silence first, every single time. Her silence is dominance, not inattention. In that silence, she was watching you unravel, confirming her control. The man who cannot endure silence is a man who cannot endure himself. You demonstrated with absolute clarity that you were terrified of being alone with your own thoughts, because your thoughts were consumed with her. When you demanded she speak, you were not seeking connection. You were seeking a fix for your anxiety. You handed her the remote control to your nervous system, and then acted surprised when she changed the channel. This led you directly to the third circle of hell, the desperate search for validation. Your actions were no longer driven by your own principles or desires, but by a frantic calculus of, what will she think? You chose your clothes based on what she liked. You tailored your stories to elicit her laughter. Your achievements felt hollow until they were reflected in her eyes. Erich Fromm would identify this as the core pathology of the marketing orientation. You ceased to be a man and became a product, constantly adjusting your features and benefits to please a single fickle consumer. You lived in a state of perpetual performance anxiety, terrified of a bad review. This is why her compliments felt like life-saving oxygen and her criticism felt like a mortal wound. You had no internal measure of your own worth. The scoreboard was in her hands, and you were losing badly. The fourth stage was the inevitable outcome: complete, effective dependency. At this point, you were no longer a partner in a relationship. You were an addict in need of a dealer. Her presence, her attention, her approval were the only things that could medicate the gnawing emptiness you refused to confront within yourself. This is the symbiotic attachment Fromm warned of. It is not love. Love is the union of two whole, independent individuals. Your situation was the desperate fusion of two half-beings. Or more accurately, you were a half-being clinging to someone you believed could make you whole. This is why the thought of her leaving triggered not just sadness, but primal terror. It was the terror of annihilation. Without her, who were you? You had no answer, because you had allowed your identity to be completely absorbed into hers. You were a parasite, and you mistook the feeling of feeding off your host for the feeling of love. And finally, the fifth and final act of your surrender, the breaking of your own frame. This happened in every argument where you apologized for things that were not your fault. It happened when you accepted blame just to end the conflict. The moment you said, "I'm sorry" for having a boundary, for expressing a need, or for holding a standard, you communicated that your reality was less valid than hers. When you begged, when you pleaded after she disrespected you, you were not fighting for the relationship. You were begging for the return of your drug supply. When you asked for forgiveness for her transgressions, you signed your unconditional surrender. She tested you, and you failed. At every critical juncture, you chose comfort over respect. You chose her validation over your own integrity. You chose the illusion of harmony over the reality of your own power. You may be telling yourself that this is a cynical view, that you are just being loving, compassionate, and understanding. This is the lie your weakness whispers to you. You were not being compassionate, you were being fearful. You were not being understanding, you were being subservient. You weren't sacrificing for love. You were sacrificing your self-respect on the altar of your neediness. The fall is not visible. It does not announce itself. It happens in the silence of your hesitation. It happens in the yes you utter when your soul is screaming no. It happens in the thousand tiny ways you signal that her opinion of you matters more than your opinion of yourself. Before we proceed to rebuild the fortress of your mind, you must formalize your commitment to this new path. This is non-negotiable. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and turn on all notifications, because every video is a weapon you will need for the war ahead. Like this video as a sworn oath that you will no longer tolerate your own weakness. And in the comments, answer this question with brutal honesty. Which of the 5 surrenders, emotional concession, loss of control, validation seeking, dependency, or breaking your frame, was the one that truly broke you? Acknowledging the specific poison is the first step to engineering the antidote. You might object. You might think, but relationships are about compromise. You are confusing compromise with capitulation. Compromise is when 2 sovereign powers negotiate a treaty. Capitulation is when one power kneels before another. You might say, but I was taught to put her feelings first. You were taught to be a servant, not a partner. A true king serves his kingdom, not the whims of one person in it. Your kingdom is your purpose, your principles, your mind. By placing her feelings above your own internal constitution, you abandoned your throne. The most damning objection you might have is this: but I did it all because I loved her. Let us be clear, using Fromm's unforgiving lens. You did not love her. You needed her. You used the idea of her to escape yourself. What you called love was a sophisticated survival strategy for a man terrified of his own emptiness. It was a transaction, and your currency was your dignity. The transaction has now been terminated. You are left with nothing but the debt. No one is coming to save you. Your salvation does not lie in getting her back. It lies in becoming the man who no longer needs to be saved. The man she was never worthy of in the first place. There is no going back for the weak man. There is only the construction of the new. The man you were is a casualty of war, a ghost on a battlefield of your own making. To mourn him is to waste ammunition. To try and resurrect him is to guarantee a second, more pathetic death. Your task is not recovery. It is a complete systems overhaul. It is the demolition of a compromised structure and the engineering of a fortress in its place. This is not an emotional journey of healing. It is a cold, tactical operation of reconstruction. Your feelings are irrelevant. They are battlefield noise, enemy propaganda designed to pull you back into the kill zone. Your only guides now are strategy, discipline, and a ruthless commitment to your own ascendancy. Your first operational command is to cut the excess. This is not a suggestion. It is a surgical protocol. You will amputate her from your life with the cold precision of a field surgeon saving a soldier from gangrene. This is the protocol of absolute silence, of no contact. But you must understand what this truly is. It is not a childish game to make her miss you. It is not a tactic to win her back. To think in those terms is to remain her slave. This is an act of war against your own addiction. You are cutting off the supply line to the enemy that occupies your mind. You will block her number. You will delete it. You will not save it somewhere just in case. You will remove her from every social platform. You will block her. You will not just unfollow. You will create a digital void where she once existed. Any mutual friends who serve as her unwitting intelligence agents, feeding you scraps of information about her, are to be considered compromised assets. They are to be sidelined or cut out completely. You are entering a period of strategic isolation. You are taking your mind offline from her influence so you can purge the malware she installed in your operating system. This will be excruciating. Your addiction will scream for a fix. It will manufacture 1,000 rationalizations for why you should reach out. A birthday, a holiday, an innocent question. You will treat every one of these impulses as an enemy incursion, and you will execute it without hesitation. Be an absence that carries weight, not a presence that begs. The silence you create is not empty. It is a vacuum into which your own power will expand. The second command is to install silence. This goes beyond the digital realm and becomes your new interpersonal posture. You must master the art of non-response. When, not if, she eventually sends a probe, a breadcrumb text, a meaningless "how are you?" you must understand it for what it is. A power check. She is testing the leash. She is checking to see if you are still her dog, waiting by the door. Your response will determine the next chapter of your life. A fast, eager reply confirms her power and resets your subjugation to 0. A bitter, angry reply reveals your wound and confirms her impact. The only winning move is the one she cannot comprehend: silence. Your silence is not passive, it is a weapon. It communicates a new reality more powerfully than any words ever could. It says, "Your access to my world has been revoked. Your opinion is no longer currency here. Your presence is no longer required." This is how you reclaim dominance. You do not argue. You do not explain. You do not perform. You simply become unavailable. You become a closed door, a locked gate. In the world of power dynamics, the person who can tolerate the silence longer wins. You will learn to love the silence. It is the sound of your sovereignty being restored. Don't reconquer. Replace with a sharper silence. Her attempts to engage are not opportunities for connection. They are attempts to confirm her continued control over your emotional state. Deny her this data. Your inner world is now classified information, and she no longer has the security clearance. The third command is to control the reaction. This is the internal war. The first two commands were about controlling the external environment. This is about conquering the territory of your own mind. Erich Fromm spoke of discipline, concentration, and patience as prerequisites for mastering any art. The art you are mastering is the art of self-possession. You will treat your mind like a training ground for an elite operative. When the memories surface, and they will, like insurgents from the jungle, you do not engage them in emotional combat. You do not indulge their romanticized narrative. You observe them with the detached curiosity of an intelligence analyst. You note their content, you recognize them as data from a past, failed operation, and you let them pass. You will channel every wave of anxiety, every pang of obsessive thought, into physical exertion. The gym is not a hobby, it is your re-education camp. Every rep, every mile, every drop of sweat is a ritual of exorcism. You are physically transmuting weakness into strength. You are teaching your body, on a cellular level, that you are the one in command now. You will become a master of your own biochemistry, understanding that your emotional state is a cocktail of chemicals you have the power to alter through action, not wishful thinking. A man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes his presence will be feared, and that presence is forged in the silent, solitary discipline of self-mastery. With these commands active, your new mission becomes singular, the relentless pursuit of hierarchy. Your energy, once squandered on her, is now your most valuable strategic asset. You will reinvest it with the ruthless efficiency of a hedge fund manager. Your focus is now on 4 pillars of dominance. First, the physical. You will sculpt your body into a visible representation of your new discipline. This is not for her. This is for you. It is the armor you wear into the world. Second, the financial. You will attack your work, your business, your purpose, with the ferocity of a starving wolf. Your professional life is no longer a job. It is a campaign of conquest. Money is a tool, but more importantly, it is a crude but effective measure of your ability to impose your will upon reality. Third, the social. You will rebuild your network, not for comfort, but for leverage. You will connect with men who are stronger, smarter, and more successful than you. You will view your social life as a strategic map, cultivating allies and observing the power structures around you. You will learn to navigate these structures with quiet confidence, not needy validation seeking. Fourth, the symbolic. You will cultivate a skill, a passion, an area of deep competence that is yours alone. Whether it is mastering an instrument, a language, or a martial art, you will build a kingdom of skill where you are the undisputed sovereign. This is not about becoming a more interesting man to attract women. This is about becoming a man who is so consumed by his own mission that the validation of others becomes a trivial distraction. This is the productive orientation Fromm described. You cease to be a consumer of affection and become a creator of your own value. This 4-pillared reconstruction is not a hope. It is a battle plan, and its execution is the only path out of the hell you currently inhabit. This is the blueprint for your resurrection. It is not easy. It is not kind. It is a path of fire and steel, but it is the only path that leads to freedom. Before you take another step on this path, you must declare your allegiance. This is not a request. It is a command to your future self. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications, because every piece of intelligence we release is critical for your campaign. Like this video to signal your formal declaration of war against the weakness within you. And in the comments below, I demand an answer. Of the 4 pillars of reconstruction, the physical, the financial, the social, or the symbolic, which one will you lay the foundation for in the next 24 hours? Declare your first target. Your public declaration is your first act of building a new reality. The man who hesitates now is the man who will perish. Choose your weapon and begin the assault. Your new empire will not build itself. And so, the day comes. It always does. Not with the drama of a thunderstorm, but with the quiet banality of a notification. A name flashes on your screen. A ghost from a buried life. The text message is a masterpiece of casual manipulation, a carefully crafted probe designed to test the waters. Perhaps it's a, "Hey, I was just thinking about you," or a hollow, "Hope you're doing well." It is a breadcrumb thrown to see if the starving dog still waits by the table. The man you were would have felt his heart seize, a jolt of adrenaline mixing with terror and a pathetic flicker of hope. His thumbs would tremble over the screen, drafting a dozen replies, angry, witty, desperate, before sending the one that reeked of the most need. That man is dead. You are attending his funeral. You look at the name. You read the words. and you feel nothing. Not anger, not triumph, not even the cold satisfaction of revenge. You feel the profound, unshakable calm of indifference. It's the feeling of an emperor looking at a map of a forgotten province that once tried to rebel. The conflict is so long over that its memory carries no emotional weight. Her message is not an opportunity, it is an echo. It is an artifact from a museum you no longer visit. This is the ultimate victory, a victory so complete that it doesn't even feel like one. It simply feels like Tuesday. Erich Fromm argued that mature love is an act of giving, not receiving, born from a position of strength. What you have achieved is a state of mature self-possession. Your internal wellspring is so full that you have no need for the polluted water she offers. You are no longer a product on the market hoping for her validation. You are the entire economy. Her attempt to re-engage is the final, predictable move in a game you are no longer playing. She is not reaching out because she misses you. She is reaching out because she senses a shift in the power dynamic. Your silence, your absence, your complete and total disappearance from her orbit has created a void. She feels the loss of your attention, the drug she became accustomed to. She is the addict now, testing to see if her dealer is still on the corner. She is attracted not to the man you are, but to the power you now radiate. She sees the fortress you have built and wants a tour, forgetting she is the reason you needed fortifications in the first place. To let her in, even for a moment, is to tell the architect of your ruin that you enjoyed the wreckage. You do not reply. You do not block her again. You do not even delete the message. You simply put the phone down and return to your work. You return to the weight you were lifting. You return to the book you were reading. You return to the empire you are building. Your lack of response is the most devastating reply you could ever send. An angry text would have told her she still matters. A cold, dismissive text would have told her you are still wounded. But silence, absolute, unbroken, indifferent silence, that tells her the one thing she cannot psychologically tolerate. She has become irrelevant. Your silence is a statement of such profound power that it rewrites the entire history of your interaction. It tells her that her final act in your life was not her leaving you, but you forgetting her. The chessboard has not been flipped. To flip the board is to acknowledge you are still in the game, consumed by the desire to win. You have done something far more powerful. You have simply stood up and walked away from the table. You have left her sitting there, across from an empty chair, forced to play against the ghost of a man who no longer exists. She can knock over the pieces, she can declare herself the winner, but it is a hollow victory celebrated in an empty room, because your focus is on a world so far beyond her little game that she can't even comprehend its rules. You did not seek revenge. Revenge is a confession of pain. You sought something far more lethal: obsolescence. You made her, and the pain she caused, completely and utterly obsolete to your new operating system. Respect is not something you beg for. It is not something you negotiate. It is something you command through the sheer, undeniable force of your own self-contained value. It is imposed by your absence. It is enforced by your discipline. It is guaranteed by your cold, unwavering commitment to your own mission. She was a chapter in your story, a necessary one, perhaps. She was the fire that burned away your weakness. But you must never forget that her role in your life is over. She was the catalyst, not the prize. The prize is the man you became in her absence. The prize is the unshakable peace you feel in your own soul. The quiet confidence of a man who is the center of his own universe. The prize is the freedom of knowing that your happiness is not a fragile thing to be held in someone else's hands, but a fortress you built with your own. This is your legacy. Not that you got her back, but that you reached a point where you would no longer take her back. The ultimate power is not making her regret losing you. It is building a life so magnificent that her presence could only diminish it. The war is over. Your war. Now, you must solidify this new reality and arm yourself for the future. Subscribe to Dominio Psicologico and activate all notifications, for this is not just a channel. It is your ongoing strategic briefing. Like this video as a final salute to the weak man you left behind on the battlefield. And now, a final command. In the comments below, answer this question with the cold certainty of the man you are now. When that inevitable text from her finally arrives, what will your silence say about the empire you've built? Your answer is not just a comment. It is the first decree of your new reign. The day she begins to doubt the man you've become is the day she realizes she was never qualified to know him.